Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another video. I'm Cassandra from CassandraTyndall.com, and today I'm going to be talking all things Mars in Cancer. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. And if you have caught me chatting astrology before and you're tuning in again, well, thank you for being here. So Mars in Cancer is quite significant, especially after having Mars in Gemini for a 7-month period. So today I want to talk about Mars in Cancer a little bit, why it is traditionally considered to be a difficult placement, but more than that, how we can actually use this for good, because I do think some good can definitely come out of astrology, regardless of how it looks on paper or how it's been classified in the past. Now, I've tried to record this video quite a few times now, and in typical Mars in Cancer fashion, lawnmowers, it's like this lawnmower war in my street where it's like, oh no, she can't have her lawn shorter than mine. I'm going to go and do mine now. So every time I've tried to record, I've had a lawnmower to compete with. Hilarious. So before I get started on Mars in Cancer, I also just want to let you know that my website has been updated over the weekend, and it has my entire back catalogue thus far of various recent webinars and classes. So I'll put links below where you can look at those. They're available for instant download. And up until April 2, which is Sunday, I believe, they're all discounted. So the code is LEARN20, where you can grab a webinar, various astrology topics, all levels of astrology knowledge, and they're on sale, so save a few bucks through until Sunday. So I'll put all the links and what have you in the description below. Mars in Cancer. So Mars is still recovering from its retrograde in Gemini, which, we had Mars in Gemini since August, and now finally, after 7 months, it's in a new sign. So it does take Mars a little bit to get back up to speed. So usually it whips through a sign every 6 weeks. It's spending 2 months in Cancer. So from March 25 to about May 20 or May 24, we'll have a full 2 months of Mars in Cancer. So next time we'll have Mars in Cancer, Mars is going to be implicated as a part of a retrograde phase through Leo. That will take, so we'll have Mars in Cancer sort of next year, September through to about November, and then of course Mars will retrograde in Leo, and then it'll come back into Cancer in January and won't finally exit Cancer until about April. So I bring that up mainly because I feel that the astrology of April, which I'll be doing my Golden Circle work for next. So if you're not in the Golden Circle, I'll put a link down there for you below. Mars in Cancer is implicated in a lot of the astrology of April, eclipses for one, and then the astrology of sort of 2025. As Mars exits Cancer, we'll have Saturn and Neptune entering Aries. So there's a lot that's in the current astro vibe that is going to be replayed in a couple of years' time. So we'll see that collectively, of course, and no doubt, from a personal standpoint, that's going to play out for you as well. So just something to sort of pop in your pocket and think about as we explore a few themes of Mars in Cancer. So the idea of Mars being in fall, when people hear that they've got Mars in Cancer, it seems to be the planet that people get most bummed about. From my experience, oh God, nothing good can happen from Mars in Cancer. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It certainly is difficult. And it's not because of a moral judgment of having Mars in Cancer. I mean, I have Mars in detriment in Taurus, so I feel for you. But it has its own qualities that are not coherent or friendly to the sign that it's placed in, okay? And that doesn't mean that Mars can't do its thing. It's just finding a different way that's a little bit contraindicated to the way that Mars wants to operate in order for it to work well. So Mars is in fall in Cancer, just like Mars's malefic cousin Saturn is in detriment in Cancer. So the two planets that are malefic, Mars and Saturn, that do govern over the corruption of things, will naturally find their ill placement, if you like, in the sign of the moon, where she governs the generation of things, right? So Mars and Saturn are kind of anti-life, whereas uh, Jupiter, which Cancer finds its exaltation, the moon, where Cancer is ruled by the moon. So that's the signification of life or fertility and abundance. And so Mars and Saturn kind of doesn't really bring that level of joy. So traditionally speaking, Mars is war and death and violence and blood and a strife and battle. But in the more modern day, or the more modern sort of interpretive approaches to astrology, Mars is also about the way that we assert ourselves, our drive, our entrepreneurial spirit, how we get things done. Are you active and sporty, or are you not? Mars, I often describe it, with my astrology students, it is the planet by element. When your feet touch the ground in the morning, what is the first thing that you do? So for me, I have Mars in an earth sign. So it's just like, give me the food. Like it's Taurus. I have to eat. It's, almost immediately upon wakening. Although I am trying to meditate a little bit before. It's a challenge. But, in a water sign, you're going to approach the day dependent on how you feel, right? Are you in the mood to do X, Y, Z? And that's fine. Being guided by your feelings is not a bad thing, but it's not something that Mars can really function doing, right? It's not the most sort of productive element, or the most productive sign, I should say, for getting things done. It's like being a warrior and you're told to go into this battle, and then the warrior's like, I don't feel like that one. Well, you're probably not going to win that war, right? So it's just not going to, it's just this conflict of interest there. As I said, it's ruled by the moon. Cancer's ruled by the moon, and Jupiter's exaltation. So those are both places of protection and temperance and fertility and growth and generation, whereas Mars is destructive to those sorts of things. An example of that from my own life is when I was pregnant. That was when Vikings was sort of on the History Channel, maybe Netflix. It was a fairly new show at the time. And my son's dad would be like, Kaz, come and watch this. You'll love it. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know, being pregnant, I just couldn't handle the violence in the show. I said, oh, I just can't handle the violence right now, but the music's really relaxing. So there is this idea that, there's something very primal and protective when Mars is in Cancer. Cancer is about kin and clan and territory. That's family, that is your community, your whoever you hold dear is your family, right? And Mars can help you defend that at all costs. So this is a way that Mars in Cancer can be very protective. I could watch Viking style shows any day of the week, but when I was pregnant, I couldn't handle a bar of it. And when my son was still very little, I just couldn't deal with it. It was like my own sort of primordial Cancerian. I'm a Cancer, in case you didn't know. So yeah, that sort of real mother bear protective energy. And so that, I don't have Mars in Cancer, but that I have the sun in the terms of Mars. So that mother bear archetype really came out for me. And having this aversion to themes and topics that usually really pique my interest was just something I couldn't do at that particular stage of my life. So when we have Mars in Cancer, it becomes a little bit easier to cut away anything that you feel threatened by, either real or perceived, and to go into battle to, whatever you hold dear. So you can cut away, or you can go and, and sort of scuttle away like that crab and uh, avert it, walk sideways and kind of, not have that front on battle, or you can go in, all holds barred type of thing. So, a few themes, I guess, to kind of think about when Mars is in Cancer. It can be a real, a peak period where domestic difficulties become hallmarked. If you think about it from just the lowest hanging fruit of Mars in Cancer, where does most violence happen? It's within the home, it's within families, it's among people who would otherwise should care and protect us. So this can be a difficult time just for, family dynamics, whether that is old wounds opening. That could be with your immediate family, it could be with relatives, it could be from an ancestral lineage type of situation. It could be, emotional damage coming up to, it doesn't have to be physical violence. It could be the emotional wounds that sort of come back up, that tender, sensitive nature of Cancer. And Mars, that saltiness of Mars can pour a little bit of salt onto that wound. So it can be a very emotionally turbulent time. And that's another hallmark of Mars in Cancer, is that emotional turbulence. Mars wants to be a straight shooter, right? Just hit that arrow, point that arrow and hit that target. Whereas the moon moves, she waxes and wanes, and she's very chaotic and unpredictable in some ways, not in a Mercury way, but more in the changeability. She's the light of the night, and sometimes we can see her and sometimes we don't see her at all. So she does have that sort of feminine, changeable archetype there. And so with the emotional turbulence, Mars's sword can really, or the heat of Mars can fire up some emotional stuff that you may be well aware of, or that might even come seemingly left of center. Yesterday morning, Monday, when I was taking my son to school, we just had a great weekend together and taken him to school, and he was just so snarky and emotional and volatile, not in, violently volatile, but emotionally up and down. One moment I'm a loser, and then the next minute I'm the best mum in the world. And there was just this kind of these emotional ping-ponging. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I dropped him off and I'm off to the gym. I'm like, oh, Mars in Cancer, here we go. Here's our little 2-year, war of the roses between us, because we're both Cancers and we both have ill-placed Mars. So it's an interesting time. And so Mars in Cancer is going to ask us to examine some family dynamics as well. Why is someone responding or reacting in a way that they don't normally? Where are these emotional outbursts all of a sudden? Have you held these for 2 years since Mars was last in Cancer and just waited to unleash them on me now? So you might feel, so whether that happens externally through other people, it could also be you feeling more sensitive to other people. Even just like today is Tuesday, so it's Mars's day. And even just a couple of errands that I ran earlier today, I just thought, oh, is it just me feeling a little bit more sensitive? Or are other people just a little bit more reactionary than what I would otherwise perceive? So do anticipate some emotional outbursts, either from yourself or from other people, and just a general vibe of irritability can be expected as well. So this can also be a passive, what Mars in Cancer often is described as passive aggressive. And yeah, I do see that, but it's not, when we hear passive aggressive, it's usually used in a negative fashion or as a bit of a derogatory insult that you can't handle your stuff. And Well, that can be true in some cases, but that passive aggressive nature, if you think about the crab, it's a side walker. So it doesn't deal with things directly. It will sort of duck and weave and circumambulate. The crab is also an animal that is ruled by the moon, and it fluctuates between being a sea animal and a water animal. So it's not direct in its nature. And so there is going to be that sort of ebb and flow and flux. This will be of anger and violence, will rise and fall, levels of irritability and heat. It is absolutely hot, hot, hot in where I live at the moment. Just, we have a very late onset autumn where I live, and I think we're all just ready for it to hit in the next day or two. And that's going to, when you're ready for the season to change and it's lingering, will also add to those levels of irritability too. So if you are dealing with similar sort of weather patterns in your location, that's, people are going to feel it more because it's water, it's Mars in Cancer. So this passive aggressive stuff, I have a lot of thoughts on that. And it's just an indirect way of dealing with conflict. When I was a kid, my dad he had Mars in Capricorn, and he used to get very angry at me when I didn't cough up information in the way that he wanted me to obviously sharpshoot it. And he'd say to me, "Oh, Cass, we have to worm the information out of you." And I'd be like, and that's what Cancer wants. It wants to feel safe and secure before it allows itself to be vulnerable, right? It's an exoskeleton animal. And so if that crab feels provoked or threatened, it's not going to respond in the way that you want. It's going to protect itself. But still, it wants to show its tenderness. It wants to show its ability to protect and care. So it's like we ask for things, but don't ask for things. So sorry, not sorry about that one. But it is a thing, and it's something that all Cancer placements, and particularly Mars in Cancer, it can be helpful to learn to be a little bit more direct. And even if you don't know what you're doing yet, it's like, hey, I'm having a moment. I'm in a mood. Let me go and deal with it in my shell, like water signs like to do. They like to go and feel, like they process through time and feeling, and then they can come back and be a little bit more clear. But if you goad and push and prod, it's just not going to react well. So it is this sort of cool heads prevail will be necessary with Mars in Cancer. So with that red heat of Mars, use that cooling, moderate influence of the moon to recognize where maybe I'm getting a little bit hot on the collar here, or I need to sidestep conflict or avert a certain situation by removing myself from it. So if you do come across either within yourself or other people, this passive aggression or this emotional kind of turbulent, going from a loser to the best mum in the world kind of moments, rather than reacting, this is your invitation to respond. So this is really the indirect way of saying, hey, I need some nourishment, I need some tenderness, or I need some TLC, which is a very Cancer thing. So it's really important to avoid fighting fire with fire while Mars is in Cancer, because it's just these, two crab pincers just locking horns, so to speak. It's just, no one wins with that, okay? Instead, maybe see it as an invitation to offer a little bit of a cuddle and a cup of tea. And that will, you sort of got to pour a little bit of sugar on Cancer in a sense, particularly with Mars, to help soften or sedate or soothe the situation before you gently go poking and prodding for what it is that is required. So, this could also be for yourself as well. Like maybe you need to be more gentle on yourself during this period of time. And Mars, you can take that sword and carve out some space for yourself, whether that's time, whether that's removing yourself from situations that are going to set you off or upset you. And, you can take that sword and provide that space that nourishes the bonds that have been fractured or cut in the past. So that could be from 2 years ago, Mars's last time in Cancer, or you could take Mars in Cancer as almost like an olive branch of sorts and use it as an opportunity to soothe or soften the inflamed tempers that might be apparent either through other people or within yourself. So I would really suggest use this next 2 months to embrace that pause, particularly with the Saturn trine, and respond as opposed to react, which is very easy to do, but it never ends well, does it, when you really think about it? So something that I can see will be a real potential with Mars in Cancer is emotional divide. Now, just go on social media and you can see plenty of that. People are very heated emotionally, which make ripe for this kind of emotionally charged situations, this knee-jerk reactions or taking action or striking out because you are emotionally pricked or pinged or inflamed in some way. And I don't know about you, but I can't think of too many situations where knee-jerk reactions are usually the best ones. So if possible, try and embrace a little bit of the Saturn and just pause or just slow down and take a breath and go, how does this actually feel? Which is what Mars in Cancer is all about, right? So when I think about, the moon, in electional astrology in particular, it's seen as the translation of light. So, if the moon is separating from one planet and applying to conjoin another, it's said to translate the light between those two planets. So Mars in Cancer could be the invitation to be that sort of translation of light within conflict, within infighting with family or on social media. I mean, don't even bother with that, right? But I think you get the gist in the sense that how can you maybe be that translation of light for healing or tenderness or support or comfort? Because when people are passive aggressive or irritable, it's so easy just to be narky back. But can you be that translation of light and offer that, whether it's the olive branch or the comfort or, being that moon that just is a gentle light as opposed to, the light of the sun that is obviously a lot stronger. So the moon is sort of asking you to see both sides, to see the waxing and the waning and all of the phases, to be able to remain neutral to some capacity. Um, you know, Mars wants you to take sides. It wants you to go into battle for, one ideology or one tribe or one team or one political party, whatever the case may be. But Mars in Cancer can remind you that it's okay to care about more than one thing. You don't have to be on, team so-and-so, which means you cannot also have some kind of loyalty or care or concern about the other side. You can still have a deep care and concern for someone you're no longer in a relationship with, for instance. Doesn't mean you love the person that you're with any less. So it's trying to find that neutrality, I guess, that the moon can bring when she is essentially strong, in Cancer. And Mars is like, well, I want you to take this side, and then you can be that real eternal matriarch and go, well, no, I love all my children equally. I know my son, he always says, which cat do you love the best, Mum? And we have two cats. It's like, I can't choose, mother never chooses her favorite child. But it's often true, right, that as siblings, if you have brothers or sisters and you reflect on your childhood, of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, a mother loves all her children equally, but she will treat them differently And that's where that perceived conflict lies, right, between siblings. It's the perceivedness of who she loved the most or didn't love, or how she treated one against the other. And I think that I mean, I only have one child, but it would be very difficult to treat each child equally, because they are different humans. You love them equally, but you treat them differently. And so those dynamics, because they are different humans, would have to be different. You know, you might have to use honey with one child, but maybe a little bit more vinegar with the other. And that's just the nature of it. So healing that rather than adding more fuel to that divide, particularly, you know, when we're talking about Mars and Cancer and family dynamics, you know, if that area of your life is heated up, you know, understanding that you can sort of support an underdog, but still back a winner, or still like, you know, so-and-so said this, but doesn't mean, you know, everything. And I just think, you know, trying to find that watery flow rather than harsh, sharp edges can be really helpful when situations become inflamed. But then there's also other situations where you have to choose teams, you know, what you're prepared to stand for, and, you know, what hill you want to die on, proverbially speaking. So I think that sometimes can be really important too. And, you know, finding what that is for you, but then also understanding or having room or space for that things can also be mutable, or not mutable in terms of an element, but changeable. The moon is changeable. And sometimes it's okay to have conflicting feelings, which I think is very much a Mars in Cancer thing too. Yeah, well, my loyalties might lie here, and, you know, that is not in question, but I'm in conflict about, you know, what that also means. And that's totally okay. And I think that sometimes might be where the theme of mother's guilt might come from, right? Where, you know, your loyalty lies with your child or your children, but the conflict might be that single life, or that irresponsible life, or not having to think about all the moving parts that are involved when you have children, for instance. And of course, I'm just using these examples of, you know, mother and child, but, you know, you can apply this to anything in the collective sphere, maybe a workplace situation, or maybe where your next holiday is going to be. Of course, you really need to look at your Cancer house and think about, okay, well, where might I have conflicting feelings, some passive aggressive behavior? Where am I sidestepping issues that I really need to be tackling head on? So those are ways you can think about that. So as I mentioned, you know, with chaotic feelings or conflicting feelings, the moon is a sort of a little bit chaotic in the sense of her changeability. But she is who she is. You know, the moon waxes and she wanes. She governs the tides and all of the things. So find peace in that things don't have to be cut and dry. Sometimes things can change. Things don't have to be either or. They can be this and that. How can they be and both? So as I said, loyalties can change, feelings can change, and moods can change. And that's okay. I think that's a really important thing with Mars in Cancer. Any Cancer planets, it's understanding that it's a spiral in, as opposed to a spiral out. And that's the internal conflicts of Mars in Cancer. So how can you remediate that? Well, you know, finding active ways to work with Mars in a water sign like Cancer. So that would be time, like go outside at night and get a moon tan, you know, spend time under the moon, or make a little bit of magic under the moon. You know, maybe have a barbecue and eat outside. Obviously, that's going to be a bit weather dependent. You know, if you're still snowing in your neighborhood, maybe not. But, you know, rather than sort of sitting with your family, you know, staring at the box or artificial lights, get out in the moonlight and connect in the dark. Have those conversations in the dark. And, you know, that can help. You know, the moonlight can help heal. rather than cause conflict or that sort of changeability. And the gentleness of the moonlight can help, tend to those wounds that are already inflicted and help maybe prevent you from causing any more, whether that's to others, from others, or within yourself. So I do think there's a lot of benefit that can be worked with Mars and Cancer, and working with the moon, I think, is a very big way to do that. So get outside at night, look at her, and take her guidance and her gentleness and that real kind of TLC energy, and she will be that kind of matriarchal principle that will sort of maybe tame or subdue those like wild warriors or those wild boys kind of thing, that martial energy. So yeah, I could talk about Mars and Cancer for a long time, but I hope that this has given you some maybe different angles to not only work with this transit, but if you are reading for people and you hit a bit of a wall when it comes to how do I interpret Mars and Cancer and not make it sound all bad, hopefully that's given you some tips to do that. So again, just reminding you, my webinars are on sale, 20% off. It's Learn 20. And if you would like deeper dives into the astrology, then my Golden Circle will be coming out for April in the next couple of days. So you're more than welcome to join me in the circle, which is my astrology membership community and where all the good stuff happens. I'd love to see you there. And I'll put a link in the description for all of it below. Once again, thanks for watching if you've made it this far, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.